Hello, how are you? I am sitting down talking to you during the great East Coast polar vortex. I'm literally going to go shovel after I finish it. I'm going to get my exercise in by shoveling. I never shovel. I have people to do that, but I haven't been working out and I need to work off this holiday snackathon I've been on. So I'm actually gonna burn some calories by shoveling. So if you've never been here before, welcome. If you have, for my handful of subscribers, my name is Dr. Keisha Ducree, and I am a Black feminist geographer. And I come on every now and then to tell you about places and people. We talk about Black women and spaces and places in power. And I also share with you some of the things, some travel tips as well. So one of my first videos, my two first videos were about passport privilege. And I noted, if you've seen that, and if you haven't, go check it out. I'll put a link to that, where I talk about, if you have if you're from the United States, you owe it to yourself to get a passport, even if you don't have a destination in mind, because the U.S. passport is pretty universally accepted. I mean, universal is accepted. So check that video out. But I also want to talk a little bit more about going abroad or travel in general. And because this is the new year, some of you have made resolutions. I try not to, but everyone's talking about New Year's resolutions. So I want to share with you five things, 5 ways to prepare yourself if travel is one of your resolutions. This works. I'm talking primarily about international travel, but please, this can also be kept in mind for if you're going to travel, domestically. So I want to share with you 5 things you should do to prepare yourself if more travel is part of your resolution. So, before we get started and I share these 5 tips, can you take a moment to like this video as well as subscribe? I keep my goal. I'm not going to call it a resolution. My goal is to continue to make these videos, and so I hope that these tips go a long way, and we can keep this conversation alive. In terms of keeping this conversation alive, let me know if travel is a part of your resolution. And I don't know, maybe you have a particular destination in mind, which I'm going to talk about too. One of the tips is to be flexible on that. But go ahead and comment and say yes or no. Travel is one thing that I want to do more of in 2025. And I'm thinking about going XYZ. Let's start a conversation. And I'll share mine as well in the comments and let me know what you think. So, again, the 5 things you need to do if your resolution is to travel more in 2025. So, number one of the things that people talk about, one of the things that are on most people's minds when they talk about New Year's resolutions, of course, is something about relationships. It seems like always, I flip through and people like, creating boundaries and, getting out of these types of relationships and evaluating things. And so this is on the same vein in terms of relationships. And the idea, tip number 1, is to create a community of like-minded folks. Okay? Get a squad. And so what do I mean by get a squad? Oh, let me change that. My notes are all over the place. I keep my notes here. Number 1 is going back to passport privilege. That message in my first and second video. Get a passport. That's number 1. Even if your plans are domestic, get a passport anyway. Be ready, stay ready. And some of you, like me, I live about an hour and a half, 45 minutes to an hour and a half from the Canadian border. And when I lived in Southern California, I lived about that distance from the Mexican border. So even a road trip might put you into another country. So that was number 1. I forgot because I talked about that already. Number two is get in community with like-minded folks. So if you're like me, I think many of us are like, yeah, girl, we're gonna go to Jamaica. Yeah, girl, we're gonna go to Jamaica. We're gonna go to Cancun. And then, you're all sitting together, drinking wine, talking ish. And you look up and, people like, yeah. And then the time comes around for making those deposits and it's crickets. It happens to the best of us. People, I'm not gonna, make villains out of your girlfriends. It's just that stuff happens. And maybe their resolution is not to travel more, that they have another one. And so it's important to be in a community with people that align with your goal. Okay? That doesn't mean you don't hang out with Becky and them. I don't know why I said Becky. I have no idea why I said Becky. But that means that you need to expand your list of people to see what's possible. For example, for myself, and I'll share my story in another video of how I ended up. There was a point in my life, not so long ago, when I decided that I wanted to travel. And at the time that I said I wanted to be intentional and travel more and see the world, I had 2 toddlers. No lie. I had 2, I want to say 4. He had turned 4. He just turned 4. And then I had a 2-year-old. And so I was like, I want to travel. Which people would be like, what do you mean you want to travel? You have kids. And then, my friends loved them. And they were like, why are you taking the kids with you? They're not going to remember. And so, I didn't want to fight with somebody about my reason for traveling. Matter of fact, I wanted the opposite. I wanted to be like, okay, I'm committed to travel and I got small kids. So there's got to be other people that do that. And so I joined, I started following Mom Charter on Instagram. I joined another group like Travel with Kids. Mom Charter on Instagram has a group called Black Kids Do Travel. And so I joined virtually, but I joined a community of other people who were like, I have kids and I'm taking them with me wherever in the world. And that's there. And you have to seek it out. And it's great because not only do you have to defend your choices, which is nice, you actually are really, really inspired. You have people whose kids have been to more countries than you have, right? They offer ideas, they give you tips. You learn a lot from being in community with like-minded individuals. So my example is traveling with kids. And I'm going to share with you more about my travel with kids. It's been really interesting. My kids I've tried to count them. I think they've been to 7 countries so far. And with more planned. But you may not have kids. And so you're going to look for solo travel. You're going to look for community of Black solo female travelers. You're going to pick a community of travelers who have particular sets of identities and needs. So that would be queer travel, or people who one of the people that I follow is another YouTuber who does disability abroad, and so she has mobility issues, slight mobility issues, and so I'm really interested, particularly when I'm planning travel with my the larger group of family. I'm really interested in how she experiences the world, and if it's a good place to bring my mom, who also has mobility issues. So they're out there. Whatever you are, vegan travels. There's a group of which I'm I'll probably join soon. There's also a group of travelers. This is all kind of Facebook groups or following people on Instagram or YouTube. I said, and I haven't, and I need to join people with with food allergies, and how they navigate the world, and the best places for people to navigate the world if you have allergies to X, Y, and Z. So if you don't have it, if you don't have a squad, there is a virtual squad. There's an online community that you can join where you can be inspired by and get tips by whatever type of identity that is a part of you that will facilitate easing when you travel. They're out there. And so I told you a couple of ones, Facebook groups, Black Kids Do Travel, IG is Mom Trotter. There's a number of IG travel influencers. If you have any other interesting ones, there's Disability Abroad YouTuber. If you have any groups that you find helpful given your different identities, so maybe it's Black couple travel or whatever it may be, put them in the comment and let me know what other groups that are out there that might appeal to you. There's a guy, I don't know his name right now, and if you remember, I'll look for it, but there's a guy who had a couple years ago, he was a social media where he talked about being obese and traveling as a very large man, Black man, and that was really interesting. So there is a group of people out there, and they will inspire you if you are, you have the resolution to get out there, and you feel like you're limited by something. It's really inspiring to be in conversation with people who are, again, like-minded or in the same type of situation, and how they navigate and their tips and tricks. And most of the things that I give you today are being in conversation and reading what others have done. I'm just condensing it into 5 tips for you in case so I'm trying to call all my knowledge together and give it to you in this small episode. So 1 is passport. Be ready, stay ready. Number 2, be in community with like-minded or identified travelers. Number 3, be flexible. So if you have made traveling your resolution, you've probably created a list of specific places, right? How many of you probably have Bali and Maldives, and what else is like a spot to go? Jamaica. I am going to suggest, and when you think about these specific places that you want to go, you also probably in your mind, as we all have to do because we all work, we're probably not independently wealthy. And if you are, congratulations. But those of us who have to go to work, you're probably also thinking you want to go to these specific places at these specific times. You have spring break, if you and your kids can go, or you always take off that week for your birthday, or then maybe you want to go during the holiday, MLK's weekend is coming up. So when you ever have that free Monday off and you try to take your PTO and you try to straddle it. So you either, and you have this much to spend. Okay, so those are the things when you say, I'm going to travel, I want to go to this specific place at this specific time and pay this specific amount of money. And I'm going to tell you that in order to maximize your travel and to get to your travel resolution, you're going to have to ease up off at least one of those things. Specific location, specific time, specific budget. That's the bad news. The tip is be flexible on those things. So I'm not saying go somewhere you don't want to go at a time you don't want to go for a price you don't want to pay. I'm saying you're going to have at least one of those things that are not going to fit. And so be flexible on them. So if you are a teacher, for instance, you can only go and travel extensively during the summer or during a break, then you're going to have to be flexible about where you go, right? Because school time, spring breaks, fall breaks, Christmas, whatever, those are the most expensive times to go. And so I'm not suggesting that you blow your budget, but in order to get that, if you can't be flexible about time, you need to be flexible about place. I'm not going to tell you to be flexible about money because I'm budget minded, okay? So you're like, but that's a bummer. Well, not necessarily. Again, maybe you can be flexible about time. So you really, really want to go to Egypt, and you're retired or you're on sabbatical or what have you, then you can probably go to Egypt and get an affordable time, right? Watch prices. So I just suggest that if you want to travel, to be flexible on one dimension, okay? If you are a teacher, congratulations to you, because my kids are in fourth and fifth grade right now. God bless you. Then yeah, you're gonna have to be flexible on places. But the good news about being flexible on places does not mean you don't get to go on your bucket list of places. As a matter of fact, in the travel community, they've been using a term called dupes, which is an awkward term to call a place a dupe. I mean, we talk about dupes when it comes to clothes and skincare and stuff like that, but a place is weird. But the idea of dupes, travel dupes, is that they're generally off the beaten track. It's not where everybody is flocking to, and it's just as beautiful. It has all of the things that people are going to the popular places for. Okay, so it's not, and it's more affordable. So dupes tend to be like they are when you see dupes when it comes to designers, right? They tend to be more affordable options with all of the style, right? And that's the same thing with these places, although it's awkward to call a place a dupe. So they're more affordable places to go. And therefore they're great options for people who are budget minded and location flexible. So I'm going to put in the notes some dupe places. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I read them and I keep going. I never focus on them. I'm definitely operate in kind of both of those. I kind of stick to a region. I have a budget, stick to a region. And I care less about the boys missing school. Sorry, teachers. Because of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I was like, oh no. And when, I was left alone with them, for like months, almost a year alone, I'm like, they'll be fine. They'll be fine if they miss a week of school. But if you're a teacher, you didn't hear that. But remember, be flexible. And that brings us into number 4. If you are flexible, you're going to get kind of the best deals. And the way to find if you are flexible, the best thing that you can do, because I think travel also, the idea of planning a trip somewhere gives people anxiety. And my tip number 4 is to use the internet. Whoops. Sorry about that. My tip number 4 is to use the internets. So I say internets to be cheeky, but basically to have a little bit of travel ease and any travel anxiety, go ahead and use tech tools. All you need is your browser to make things easier for you. And again, if you follow the tip of flexibility, that's when you get the best outcomes when it comes to using tech tools. So before you freak out about how much something costs, you may not know the cost, and you may not know that the pricing is dynamic. So there's certain times of the year particularly if you're trying to go to Mexico or someplace in the Caribbean. Of course, it's more expensive during the in season. And so we call things like off season, peak season. And then there's shoulder season, which is following high season where prices drop off. And so it's good to track prices over time. Like, look, even when you're not about to go anywhere or you want to go, just get used to the travel schedule. And the way that things to do that, the easiest thing to do is Google Flights. Man, Google Flights is everything. Google Flights is everything. So if you're looking specific, you can pick from your airport. But again, if you're flexible, that's where you get the most options. So my airport is not a major airport. I tend to fly, especially if international destinations, I will drive to a larger metropolitan airport within 5 hours. I know that's a lot for some people, but if you don't, if I'm traveling with my family of 4 and we're going abroad and the ticket can cost $100 or even more per person, me driving to JFK saves us $400, and $400 we're saving. If you're traveling alone, you can pay the premium or whatever. But if you're willing to have the flexibility, I prefer flexibility. I'll drive to a major airport, and then you can put in Google Flights multiple departure points, right? You can. So for me, I can put in all the airports in New York City, all the airports in DC. I'll put in Philly. I've even put in Boston. When also searching my home airport to figure out what place has the best deals. The other feature in Google Flights is that you can explore. So that's the fun part, right? And that's the location flexibility. So you can just put in where you're coming from and hit explore, and it'll give you a world map. You can expand it, or you can zoom in on the West Coast to see where the best deal is in a particular week in a particular month. So that's giving you the ultimate in location flexibility as well as date flexibility. And so the beauty of Google Flights is that you can have all these kind of search features in terms of how long the flight, how many stops. I would totally get off if you have time, I would totally go play with Google Flights. Just play with it and just imagine. That's actually kind of a pastime for me. I don't know what that says about me, but I just like to see, where could I go in East Africa in March? That's my jam. That's what I like to do. Another great tech tool is Skyscanner. Now, I remember I was drinking some peachy Prosecco, which is not a good idea to be on Skyscanner while drinking. And that's how my family ended up in St. Thomas for Memorial Weekend. Skyscanner is kind of the same thing. And again, it has an Explorer feature. So you can put in, I'm here and I want to just tell me where, what are the deals now? And that's how I ended up. So I'm really not location specific. Like if it's warm, I'll go there. And most of our trips have been like that. Also to let you know that in Google Flights, you can set alerts. So if it's a place that's really expensive right now, and you can look out pretty far, then go ahead and set up a Google flight alert, and it'll tell you when it hits that amount or that if the price changes. So that's another good way to do things. Again, flexibility. If you are flexible in location, do an Explorer and Skyscanner on Google Flights. See where you can go for a $250 round trip. Okay, and you could pick the week you could go. Where can you go for $250 round trip during your district's spring break? And that's where you're going. There's also kind of subscription services that do similar things. So it's called Going. I use Going. I'm subscribed to Going, which was formerly called Scott's Cheap Flights. So you basically tell them all the airports you're willing to fly out of, and they send you deals. There's a couple of them. If you have others that you recommend and use, please put them in the comments. I think there was like $1 flights or something like that. If you're a points person, you can also do that. And I'm going to talk about travel hacking in just a minute. And other kind of tech tool internets you could use. Some people get freaked out by if you're doing something extensive, a country that you don't know anything about, and you want a little bit more ease. I have used Zcasso. I use Zcasso. I've used that, and what you do there is it's a travel curate, like a tour. So you put in where you want to go. I haven't used it in a while. You put where you want to go, and then a list of travel agents will contact you or share some of the options that they have for you, and you can select from them or not. So I did that once when our family's first trip to the continent, the African continent. I actually put in that I wanted to go to Kenya on safari, and I was contacted, and I actually ended up going with someone who convinced me that South Africa would be a great place for a family first safari. And so Zcasso was really interesting for something that you have no idea about, and you want to, rely on the professional. And it was cost effective. The other thing that I haven't used, but being in travel groups, ChatGPT. And if any of my former students or any of my current students hear me say something about AI, this is different. I'm not saying write a paper. I'm saying that travelers have been enthusiastic about using ChatGPT to create an itinerary. So apparently, allegedly, haven't done it yet. So maybe I will. You can say, you can write in a prompt, give me a 14-day itinerary that would include the Masai Mara and Kenya with Tanzania or something like that. Yeah, you can put in that, and they'll spit out an itinerary for you to work through. You still got to do all the work, but it does give you a sense of what's possible if you have a certain day and specific times. Again, being flexible. So recap, use internets to do things for you. Again, tip 3, the more flexible you are, the easier it'll be to meet your travel goals for 2025. Where are we? Tip 5. Last one, but not the least. And probably the one that you're most interested in. Girl, who gonna pay for this? I got you. I got some tips for how to afford to travel if that is your goal in 2025. So no big magic secrets. I'm not one of these internet people who are like, this is how you can make 2,000. No, it's when you listen to it, it's pretty practical. Nothing but practical here. But you need to create a travel budget, and you're like, out of what? So just add that piece to your, first of all, you should budget. And trust me, I need to do a better job myself. Travelers have told me about YNAB. You need a budget. It's a zero budgeting, balanced budgeting tool. I keep trying to use it, but I'm going to get back to it. One of my goals. So travel budget. How do you think about how you fund these things? Because you're ready. You have your passport. You are in a group of, travelers now through Facebook. You join the Facebook community of people who have similar circumstances that you do. You're flexible when it comes to where you want to go, or you're flexible of when you want to go there. You're willing to travel to get the best deal to the nearest airport. You've done all these things. You set your price alerts. Okay, you get a price alert. how do you pay for it? Well, that's the hard part, right? I'm more of a person of approaching it bit by bit. Instead of paying for this big sum, think of like what I used to do, like a layaway approach. So I don't know, back in the day, my mama used to have, and I think credit unions still do have like a little Christmas account. Like you put $50 in the account so that by the over the course of a year you have a nice little account to pay for Christmas stuff. So you could think about that, putting money aside somewhere once a month, small amount. Um, or you can use opportunities when you get lump sums. So I don't get money back for tax season, but you can use tax returns. That's if you are already budgeted, you don't have big debt. So these tips are assuming that you are not insignificant debt. This assumes a good credit score of about, let's say, 619. If you don't, I can point you to where you can handle that too. So this is not to put you down. If you're slower, there are ways to get you out of it, and I'll point you to the group that I'm about to talk about. So if you get that return, remember back in the day, I grew up working class, working for it. So that was opportunity to get anything you like really needed, like, to fix that washer, to get an appliance and stuff. So if you do get tax returns, you could put that in an account to sit, and so that you could be ready when that price alert comes. Now, companies, industry have those credit affirm type payment things. I'm not gonna advise that, particularly if you have good credit, and you're not overburdened. But that is an option that didn't exist, so that you can pay over time. I know cruises now have a pay over time. Just be careful, because those costs, you can be overspending, and over budgeting yourself. So be careful with that, but that is an option for those of us who really can't do it. So instead of putting it away and then paying for it, you're paying for it and taking it away. Again, the first option is better because you don't have the interest. But the other thing is, I got this tip from a Black Family Travel group, and that is, if you have what is it called? A child care flex account. If you have one of those kind of tax shelters where you could put money away and you pay for childcare, what I used to do is I didn't touch that money all year, and then I would take the receipt for the childcare, and for some of us, many of us, childcare is almost the cost of our mortgage, so that's a good thing to put your money in. If your company offers it, if you have children, if they are in childcare, this is definitely something you should do. I did not know about this until later. But if you have an option to create a dependent care account with your work, I got this from, again, a travel group. What she suggested is that you don't go to the account over the year. You let it accrue. You submit your receipt for the childcare that you spent, and take that reimbursement and fund your family trip. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's really an amazing option, particularly if you already have it. If your job doesn't have that, then I'm sorry. I know that's not up to you, but again, this was available to me, and I did not start taking advantage of it until the boys only had one last year in preschool. And the only reason I've been able to still use it, even though they're grade school, is because they are in an aftercare program. So see if that's an option with your work. If it's not, again, you can put money aside. But kind of the best way, for me, the one that has been a game changer for me in terms of funding my travel, is travel hacking. Or they call it credit card hacking. And I am not an expert on it, but I can tell you that I started the game of travel hacking during the pandemic. And I took, so let me define it first for those who don't know. And it is leveraging credit card reward programs, miles, points, or whatever to fund your travel. So the rules of it goes against anything you were taught about money. Because we were taught to not use credit, to use it as little as possible. And it's like using credit in overdrive. Again, this is assuming that you have a decent credit score. I would say like about 619. And it is really concentrating and strategically. It's a strategy. You don't go out and just sign up for anything. But it is a strategic way of getting credit cards, strategically getting them based on the points, using them for your regular expenses. You're not going out to buy things that you don't need. This is using them to pay your regular expenses, what you would normally pay cash for or debit card for. Your groceries, your gas, your daycare. Using them to pay your normal expenses to to meet the minimum spend for the bonuses and points. It has been a game changer. One of the first cards that travel hacking community tells you to get is a Chase Sapphire Preferred, and that's the one I got. At the time, they were offering, this is back in 2020, they haven't offered it like that, 100,000 points. That's incredible. They were offering 100,000 points if you spent X amount of dollars. I can't remember what it was. Was 6 maybe? Or 8? I don't remember. If you spent X amount of dollars within 3 months of getting the card. And again, you do not spend anything other than what you would normally spend. You just put everything on the card. Number one, and the rule of credit card hacking is that you pay the entire balance when it is due. If you don't pay that balance, you have a high interest rate and it negates any value you would get from points. Okay? So practically speaking, I got the Chase Sapphire Preferred for 100,000 points, and I used those points. I really didn't know what I was doing. There's strategies on how to do it too. I just went into the Chase portal, which is, looking back, a newbie mistake, but I won't get into the details. But I used that and went to the Chase Travel portal and got all of us, my whole family, got round trip, non-stop flights from New York to Anchorage, Alaska. Round trip, non-stop for those points. So you can use points for anything related to travel. You can use points for flights. You can use points for hotels, and it is a great strategy. Again, if you have a decent credit score and you pay your bill each month, and you do it strategically. So the group that I use, again, is another FB group, like-minded individuals, people who maximize their travel through points. My favorite has been 10X Travel. I'll put them in the link. 10X Travel is amazing. They have a podcast now. I haven't listened to the podcast. I probably should. And I can tell you that I don't pay full for any trips that my family and I take. As a matter of fact, just to get you inspired, when we went to South Africa, I used points for all of our flights but one way. So I was able to get largely my family from New York to Cape Town and back on points. And all the hotels except for when we went to stay at the Safari Lodge, all the hotels were on points. So what would have been, I don't know, a trip that would have been the upwards of $10,000, $12,000. I only paid for the inter-Africa flights, the flight from Cape Town to Durban. I paid them full price. And of course the tours and things like that. And I found when we went to Hawaii that in the Chase portal, you can even pay for tours through points. So it is great. Again, the caveat is good credit, willing to pay your thing on time, and do not do not go out and buy things that aren't really in your budget. So that really is my best tip for funding it. We have reached the 40-minute mark. I could talk. I'm sorry. I get excited, especially about travel hacking. I will put in the comments, I will comment broadly, but in the notes, I will put some of these tech tools, Zocaso, ChatGPT, Google Flights, Skyscanner, Going, formerly Scott Sheep Flights. I'll also put a link to 10x Travel, which is amazing. It's a lot to take in. They have a Facebook group as well, and I encourage you to not jump in and ask questions. The first thing they'll ask you to do is to take the course. Take the course. Take the course. Don't jump in and start asking questions, because these are kind of seasoned people and they've been asked the kind of one-on-one questions before. The course will give you the one-on-one questions. So I'll send you links to that. And please comment again about if travel is one of your resolutions. Let me know. Again, I told you to be flexible about location, but what kind are the places you're looking to go? I will also send a comment telling you I have a very ambitious plan for my travel this year. If you have any other tips that I didn't share or some corrections for me, hey, I'm open for criticism. So go ahead and send me something in the comments. Again, if you haven't, and if you like what you've heard, please like and please subscribe so I can continue to give content that I hope is helpful for you. So Happy New Year and safe travels. Get that passport. Bye.